Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. With the Yontiv of Pesach around the corner, and Yidden are machmirim to be makbid on the smallest details for what's needed and how we perform all the mitzvahs of the Yontiv of Pesach. Perhaps I'd like to touch on one small halacha. We all know that on the night of the Seder, we have to have the kaira, and there is this special mitzvahs the night of the day. There's the matzah, there's the wine, there is the maror, there is the charosis, etc., etc. And of course, the mitzvah of telling the children v'igada to levincha, which perhaps is the highlight of the evening. Let's talk about the maror. Now, you know, the way the maror grows, it's not the small pieces of maror that you buy in the fruit store or the fruits and vegetable store. The way it grows on the ground, there's a bigger, chunkier piece. So how did the maror become from a chunky piece, a bigger root, to small pieces? You could buy smaller pieces. That means somebody, somewhere, somehow, it got cut. Now we run into a dilemma. We run into a dilemma because cutting fruit, if cutting items, if it wasn't with a kosher knife, there are many issues. Now, I'm not going to go into cutting fruits, apples and the oranges and cantaloupe and the watermelons, which of course there has to be discussed. I'm specifically going to talk about the chrein, the maror. What's the additional part about maror? The additional part about maror is obviously, it has some oomph. It's bitter, maror. And halachically, you specifically take something that has a little sharpness to it. Now, there is a whole siman in Shulchan Aruch, in Yeredeya Siman Tzadik Vav, which discusses davar charif. What is a davar charif, a sharp food item, and what is the power of a davar charif? And then we have to come to a conclusion if these cut pieces of chrein, cut pieces of horseradish, should be a problem. So let me give you the siman in Shulchan Aruch in a nutshell. A davar charif, originally from the Gemara, when you read the Gemara, is a chiltis. A chiltis is a herb, a shein pri, as Rashi says. It is so potent, shemenakev b'nei me'ah shel behema, that if a behema eats that chiltis, it's so sharp that it punctures its lung, it punctures its kishkas. That is the ultimate davar charif. The Shulchan Aruch goes on to say, all right, we are going to extend the level of a davar charif not only to a chiltis, we'll accept even a tsnoin, even a radish. And the Shulchan Aruch goes further, perhaps not only tsnoin, even onions, even garlic, and the Shach and Taz bring about tamcha, about chrein, horseradish. It goes on to lemons. It goes on to salted herrings. It goes on to sour fruit. It keeps on stretching that whatever issue there may be with davar charif, as the Gemara speaks about it and the Shulchan Aruch speaks about it, we extend it to lower level davar charifs. And now we have to see how this halacha of davar charif will even affect our chrein. So now, somebody cuts the chiltis. Now, if he cuts the chiltis, this mighty strong thing, mighty sharp thing, whatever knife was used to cut it, if it was a knife shel iser, it's a major problem. Why is it a major problem? Every knife has two problems. Two issues, I'd rather say. Number one is, obviously, if it was ever used before for non-kosher or for chametz or sometimes for fleishik, and you want to use it for milchik, etc., so if it was used in a way that the taste became absorbed in the knife, now, in the next time, it will come out of the knife. That's the tam that's absorbed in the knife. Then you have another halacha. Another halacha is, and some achronim say that usually applies to the olden times, not necessarily applies today, and that is stam sakin, a usual situation of a knife, the keli of a knife, shamnu nisoy karo shalpanov. It's never cleaned very, very well, and therefore it has a small layer, small film of the last food that you used. And if it was Isser, then there's a film, a small layer. Now it's much less of an amount than what was Baileya absorbed in the knife, but there is this film, small layer of the schmutz, of the Isser, or of the chametz, of the flesh still on it. Some say that today, because the knives are washed very well, very nice, maybe that we don't have to be worried about. So if there is a knife that's shel Isser or shel chametz, actually this you should look in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, Siman Tov Mem Zayin. There is 4 or 5 seifim that summarizes about chametz. Maybe by chametz there is a special chumrah, you have to be machmer even more. So if you use that, somebody uses a knife shel Isser to cut a tamcha, now it depends. The chiltis is so powerful. The chiltis is so powerful that even if that knife was used 4 days ago, a week ago for Isser, which halachically that's what we call a tam pogum, which we could ignore b'diavad, a chiltis doesn't allow it to stay pogum, is so powerful, so potent that makes the Isser taste alive and well again. And now this chiltis will have the bad taste. The question is if that also applies by the lower level of charif. I told you there's chiltis, and then we extended it to tznoin, we extended it to radishes, to onions. So there is an issue if it goes even down to the lower levels, that if the knife is a eina ben yoimoy. And we could assume that stam sakin, stam klei akum, is also eina b'nei yoimim. So we have the one little wiggle room. We're not sure, being that if the knife was a eina ben yoimoy, it wasn't used within the last 24 hours for Isser. I'm not sure, halacha says we are not sure if even a tamcha, even a tznoin could draw out the bad taste. And then there's another thing. Because this radish, because this grain grows in the ground, who says they even used a knife? The problem only happens by knives. By knives, A, there's pressure, duchka de sakina. B, that's the knife that they cut their sandwich, they cut the ham with. But if they're digging it up with a plane, with the Shulchan Aruch calls it a marav, a chatzina, with a shovel and a plane to take it out, which some actually say that's more applicable by chrein than radish and anything else because it grows deep into the ground, so you actually are not using just a regular knife. So therefore, there is less chance to be machmir. But it could be, I'm thinking out loud, that taking it out of the ground, you use the marav chatzina. But when you're chopping it down to regular pieces, smaller size pieces, you're not using the marav chatzina, you're using the knife. So here you have to make sure that the knife, if you have all these supermarkets and they're very careful about contamination, that they shouldn't use the same knife that they use for the pork or for the fish, the non-kosher fish, then again, you have no problem of it being a sure sakin shel Isser. There's so much speculation. So halachically, it says in Shulchan Aruch like this: if you're able to buy something that wasn't cut, because even the suffix, that's best. And if you did buy one, so then if you know that it was a sakin shel Isser, if that's the other choice, the only choice you have, you actually have to take off kedei natila, the width of a thumb. And according to the Ramah, it sometimes even spreads more. But if you have no other choice, we say that the knife, we're not sure if it was dirty, and you don't even know it's a ben yoim. If it's a ben yoim, we could assume it's not. So there's a lot of wiggle room. Best would be if you buy a bigger piece, or if it's not cut down. If it's cut down, hopefully it's not cut down with a goyish knife to get out of all these issues, halachic issues.